Alright, this is Algebra 2, Section 6.5, solving square root of radical equations. Alright, so uh, a radical equation says an equation with a variable with a radicand or a rational exponent. Alright, so radical equation. A radical equation is just an equation with a radical symbol or say x, or something raised to the rational exponent. These are all radicals and they're involved in, equals some number, 24. All right, so this is a radical equation. If it has an index of 2, then it's just called a square root equation. Yeah. So solving one of these. Oh, extraneous solutions. So extraneous solutions. You can have when you square. So we're going to be squaring, or depending on the rational expression, we're going to be squaring a lot to solve these problems. When you square something, you're going to open yourself up to having extraneous solutions, meaning you'll have some false solutions. So the only way to check to see if you have a false solution is you have to check your answers. Wahahaha. You must check your answers to make sure you don't have any false solutions, which happens when you square, because when you square, you open it up for multiple scenarios. Okay. So we're going to check all of our answers when we complete them. So for the first one, they give us 4x plus 1 rooted minus 5 equals 0. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So it's 4x plus 1 root equals 5. Since this is being rooted, I'm going to square, and I'm going to square everything, which makes this 4x plus 1, which makes this 25. Subtract 1 from both sides. 4x equals 24, and then x equals 6. And then we check it and see if we did okie dokie. So 4 times 6 plus 1 root minus 5 should equal 0. 24 plus 1 is 25. And then 5 minus 5 equals 0. So then you're wondering, what you square rooted, shouldn't you have plus or minus 5? And yes, we should, but in this case of these problems, we're using just the positive roots, not the negative roots. Okay. If you have some expression x and it's raised to a rational exponent and it solves their answer, in order to solve, we have to raise each side to the reciprocal. So that's n over m. What you do on one side, you do to the other, n over m. Okay? These guys cancel, and I'm just left with x. Now, if the numerator is even, if the numerator is even, you must Must. Take the absolute value of the answer. You must take the absolute value. Oh. Okay. So here's an example. If it's even, x to the m over n, and then it's n over m. If this m in the numerator is even, then your answer is going to be the absolute value of x. That is important. You must do that. Otherwise, you will get incorrect information. Alright, so let's do one. Actually, let's look over here, actually, the problem that they have. So here, they have 3 times the sum of 1 and x raised to the 2/3 power equals 12. They divided both sides by 3. Then, remember, there's the x raised to the second thirds, it has a 2 in the numerator. So when you do the reciprocal, and these cancel out, the 4 squared is 16. The cube root of, no, 4 to the third power is 64. The square root of 64 is 8. Since the numerator is even, after you do on the left hand side, you get rid of the rational and have 6 over 6. This x plus 1 in the parentheses turns into the absolute value, which means that you have 2 answers. If you recall, when you have an absolute value, we have 2 answers. It's x plus 1 equals 8, or x plus 1 equals negative 8. And then we solve for both. Subtract 1, this would be 7. Subtract 1, this would be negative 9. Alright? You will have 2 answers. And then they did their checks and it works for both. In the case of this example, there is no even numerator. So when you do the reciprocal on all these sides, first they subtracted 1 from both sides, then they did 3/5, and they got 32. And then they subtracted 1. There is no plus or minus 32. Since there is no even number in the numerator, you don't have to do the absolute value. And then they got 31. And then did they do a check? These fools didn't do a check. Ain't that some silly shizzle right there? Alright. How disappointing. 2 times x plus 3 over 2/3. Alright. There's a 2. So there's a rational number in the numerator. So first thing I'm going to do is divide by 2. That's x plus 3 to the 2/3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. I'm going to raise that to the reciprocal of that, which is 3/2. What do you do on one side? I do to the other. 3/2. So 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. Square root of 64 is 8. So this is 8. These guys cancel out. Blah, 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 blah. Since there was a 2, I had an even number in the numerator. It's going to be the absolute value of x plus 3. Which means that this is going to be x plus 3 equal to plus or minus 8. So if I was to subtract 3 from both sides and it's a positive 8, x is going to equal 5. And then negative 8, x is going to equal negative 11. So when I check these bad boys, let's check with 5. 2 times 5 plus 3 to the 2/3 equals the 8. Right? Right. Hmm. Yeah. 2 times 8 to the 2/3 equals. So 8 squared is 64. The cube root of 64 is 4. So this is going to be 2 times 4 equals 8, which is 8 equals 8. So that works. If I was to do it with negative 11, I got 2 times negative 11 plus 3. 2/3 equals 8. I have 2 times negative 8 to the 2/3 equals 8. Again, I can even go both ways, but negative 8 squared is 64, and the cube root of 64 is 4. So 2 times 4 equals 8, and an 8 equals 8. The third, it checks out. Alright, so they gave us this equation over here, and they said the diameter of a particular, this would be a crater, is equal to 2 times the cube root of the volume measured in meters over 0.3. So they want to solve for v. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by 2 and get rid of that 2. That leaves me the cube root of the volume over 0.3. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cube it, because that's the opposite of cube rooting. What I do on one side, I do to the other. So I have d over 2 raised to the third power equals v over 0.3, because that guy cancels and that guy cancels. Then multiply by 0.3, and I get that volume equals 0.3 times the diameter of the crater over 2 cubed. In this problem, they want to know what is the diameter of the crater or the volume of the diameter of a crater is 1 kilometer. Since the diameter is in meters, I got to convert kilometers into meters, which is 1,000 meters in a kilometer, and then plug it in. So v equals 0.3 1,000 over 2 cubed, which equals 0.3 times 500 cubed. 500 cubed is a big number times 0.3, and I get that the volume is equal to 37,500,000. Yeah. What's diameter? Meters cubed. All right. Like I said before, when you square something, you'll have extraneous solutions. So you have to check all your answers when you solve these. When you have multiple answers, and even when you have one answer, it's always a good habit to check you some stuff, y'all. Okay. Here we have 5x minus 1 root plus the 3 equals x. I'm going to subtract the 3 from both sides. I don't want this radical with some other thing outside of the radical. So we're going to subtract the 3, and it's going to be 5x minus 1 root equals x minus 3. Then I'm going to do the square. So I'm going to square this guy, and I'm going to square this as a whole, not individually. I'm going to square the whole entire expression. Right, the whole entire expression. This goes away. I'm left with 5x minus 1. This one is, if you recall, a minus b equals a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So that's what I'm going to do here. So this is going to be x squared minus 2x3, so minus 6x plus 9. I'm going to put everything here and solve for x. Hopefully I can factor or something and not use the quadratic. Subtract 5x from both sides. I get x squared minus 11x plus 9 equals negative 1. Add negative 1 to both sides. I get x squared minus 11x plus 10, and that equals 0. So I got to think of a number that multiplies to positive 10 and gives me negative 1, and negative 1 and negative 10 comes to mind. X squared, negative 10x, negative 1x, that's negative 11, and 1 times 10 is 10. So x is either x squared minus 6x. X is either 1 or x is a 10. Alright, so let's do our checkies. Alright, so let's see if x is 1. So 5 times 1 minus 1 root plus 3 should equal 1. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 minus 1 is 4. So the square root of 4 plus 3 equals 1. 4 and 3 is 2 plus 3 equals 1. 5 equals 1. So this is a no-go. So we have 5 times 10 minus 1 square root plus 3 equals 10. 50 minus 9, that's 49. Plus 3 equals 10. This is 7 plus 3 equals 10. 10 equals 10, so this is a yay. Alright, so the answer is 10. So the answer is 10. Okay. Alright, so when we have two radicals, when you have two radicals, we don't want them on the same side of the equal sign. We're going to isolate them both and then square, and sometimes we have to square twice, sometimes 3 times. But in this case, we'll have to probably square 2 times. So 5x plus 4 square rooty minus square rooty of 6 equals 4. I'm going to add this square root of x to both sides. And this is going to be smaller. Um, 5x plus 4 root equals 4 plus root x. And now from that point we are going to square everything. Okay, we are going to square. So after we square, this guy goes away, and this is 5x plus 4. Here we're going to use the same thing, a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, so this is going to be 16. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times root x is root x, so this is 8 root x plus the square of square root is x. Okay, after that we're going to isolate this square root of x again, or I'm sorry, not 8, square root of x. So we're going to subtract the 16 from both sides and subtract the x from both sides. So that's going to be 4x, subtracting x from both sides, and then subtracting the 16 minus 12 equals 8 root x. Okay. From this point, we're going to square it again. We are going to square it again. All right. So a squared plus minus 2ab plus b squared, so 4 times 4 is 16, so this is 16x squared minus 4 times 12 is 48, and 48 times 2 is 96x, and then 12 squared is 144. And that's going to be 8 squared is 64, and then it's going to be 64x. I'm going to subtract 64x from both sides, and I get 16x squared minus 160x plus 144 equals 0. I can factor out a 16. So this is 16 times x squared minus 10x plus, let's see, 144 divided by 16 is 9. So I got to think of a number that multiplies to 9 and adds up to negative 10. So here I got x times x is x squared, 9 negative 9x, negative x, that's 10x, and then 9 times negative 1 is 10. So I can be either 1 or I can be 9. And the only way to find out is to check, y'all. Alright, so let's plug it in for, let's do 1. So 5 times 1 plus 4 minus the square root of 1 should equal 4. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 plus 4 is 9. Square root of 9 minus the square root of 1 should equal 4. Square root of 9 is 3. 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. And 2 does not equal 4, so this is a no-go. Alright, so let's try 9. 5 times 9 plus 4 minus square root of 9 equals 4. 5 times 9 is 45. And 45 plus 4 is 49. Minus the square root of 9. That should equal 4. 7 minus 3 should equal 4. 4 equals 4. So this is a check and a yay. So x equals 9. Okay guys, that is this section. I hope you have a great rest of your day.